Hi, I didn't know the video started. All right, I'm going to read More of Wonder. This part is first day jitters. So, jitters is like nerves. So, the Augie is going to school now for the first day, and he's very nervous. So, he has first day jitters. Okay, so I admit that the first day of school, I was so nervous that the butterflies in my stomach were more like pigeons flying around my insides. Mom and dad were probably a little nervous too, but they acted all excited for me, taking pictures of me and Via before we left the house, since it was Via's first day of school too. Up until a few days before, we still weren't sure I would be going to school at all. After my tour of the school, Mom and Dad had reversed sides on whether I should go or not. Mom was now the one saying I shouldn't go, and Dad was saying I should. Dad had how told me he was really proud of how I handled myself with Julian and that I was turning into quite the strong man. I had heard him tell Mom that now he thought, sorry, and I had heard him tell Mom that he now thought she had been right all along. But Mom, I could tell, wasn't so sure anymore. When Dad told her that he and Via wanted to walk me to school today, since it was on the way to the subway station, Mom seemed relieved that we would all be going together, and I guess I was too. Even though Beecher Prep is just a few blocks from our house, I've only been on that block a couple times before. In general, I try to avoid blocks where there are a lot of kids roaming around. On our block, everybody knows me, and I know everybody. I know every brick and every tree trunk and every crack in the sidewalk. I know Mrs. Grimaldi, the lady who's always sitting by her window, and the old guy who walks up and down the street whistling like a bird. I know the deli on the corner where Mom gets our bagels, and the waitresses at the coffee shop who all call me honey and give me lollipops whenever they see me. I love my neighborhood of North River Heights, which is why it was so strange to be walking down these blocks feeling like it was all new to me suddenly. Amesfort Avenue, a street I've been down a million times, looked totally different for some reason. Full of people I never saw before, waiting for buses, pushing strollers. We crossed Amesfort and turned up Heights Place. Via walked next to me like she usually does, and Mom and Dad were behind us. As soon as we turned the corner, we saw all the kids in front of the school. Hundreds of them, talking to each other in little groups, laughing, standing with their parents, who were talking with other parents. I just kept my head way down. Everyone's just as nervous as you are, said Via in my ear. Just remember that this is everyone's first day of school, okay? Mr. Tushman was greeting students and parents in front of the school entrance. I have to admit, so far nothing bad had happened. I didn't catch anyone staring or even really looking at me. Only once did I look up to see some girls looking my way and whispering with their hands cupped over their mouths. But when they looked away, when they saw me notice them, we reached the front entrance. Okay, so this is it, big boy, said Dad, putting his hands on top of my shoulders. Have a great first day. I love you, said Via, giving me a big kiss and a hug. You too, I said. I love you, Augie, said Dad, hugging me. Bye. Then Mom hugged me, but I could tell she was about to cry, which would have totally embarrassed me. So I just gave her a fast, hard hug, turned, and disappeared into the school. Locks, the next section. I went straight to room 301 on the third floor. Now, I was glad I'd gone on that little tour because I knew exactly where to go and didn't have to look up once. I noticed that some kids were definitely staring at me now. I did my thing of pretending not to notice. I went inside the classroom and the teacher was writing on the chalkboard while all the kids started sitting at different desks. The desks were in a half circle facing the chalkboard, so I chose the desk in the middle toward the back, which I thought would make for it to be harder for anyone to stare at me. I still kept my head way down, looking up enough from under my bangs to see everyone's feet. As the desk started to fill up, I did notice no one sat next to me. A couple of times someone was about to sit next to me, then changed his or her mind at the last minute and sat somewhere else. Hey, August. It was Charlotte giving me her little wave as she sat down at a desk in front of the class. Why anyone would ever choose to sit way in the front of the class? I don't know. Hey, I said, nodding hello. Then I noticed Julian was sitting a few seats away from her talking to some other kids. I know he saw me, but he didn't say hi. Suddenly, someone was sitting down next to me. It was Jack Will. Jack. What's up? He said, nodding at me. Hey, Jack, I answered, waving my hand, which I immediately wished I hadn't done because it felt kind of uncool. Okay, kids. Okay, everyone, settle down, said the teacher, now facing us. She had written her name, Miss Petosa, on the chalkboard. Everybody find a seat, please. Come in, she said to a couple kids who had just walked into the room. There's a seat there and right there. She hadn't noticed me yet. Now, the first thing I want everybody to do is stop talking, and she noticed me. Put your backpacks down and quiet down. She had only hesitated for a millionth of a second, but I could tell the moment she saw me, like I said, I'm used to it now. I'm going to take attendance and do the seating chart, she continued, sitting at the edge of her desk. Next to her were 3 neat rows of accordion folders. When I call your name, come up and I'll hand you a folder with your name on it. It contains your class schedule and your combination lock, which you should not try to open until I tell you to. Your locker number is written on this class schedule. Be forewarned that some lockers are not right outside this class, but down the hall. Before anyone even thinks of asking, no, you cannot switch your lockers and you can't switch locks. Then, if there's time at the end of this period, we're all going to get to know each other a little better, okay? Okay. She picked up the clipboard on her desk, started reading the names out loud. Okay, so Julian Albans, she said, looking up. Julian raised his hands and said, here, at the same time. Hi, Julian, she said, making a note on her seating chart. She picked up the very first folder and held it out toward him. Come pick it up, she said, kind of no nonsense. He got up and took it from her. Ximena Chin, she handed a folder to each kid as she read off the names. As she went down the list, I noticed that the seat next to me was still the only one empty, even though there were 2 kids sitting at one desk just a few seats away. When she called the name of one of them, a big kid named Henry Joplin, who already looked like a teenager, she said, Henry, there's an empty desk right over there. Why don't you take that seat, okay? She handed him his folder and pointed to the desk next to mine. Although I didn't look at him directly, I could tell Henry did not want to move next to me, just by the way he dragged his backpack on the floor as he came over, like he was moving in slow motion. Then he plopped his backpack up really high on the right side of a desk, so it was kind of like a wall between his desk and mine. Maya Markowitz, Miss Petosa was saying. Here, said a girl about 4 desks down from me. Miles Nowry. He's here, said the kid that had been sitting with Henry Joplin. As he walked back to his desk, I saw him shoot Henry a poor you look. August Pullman, said Miss Petosa. Here, I said quietly, raising my hand a bit. Hi, August, she said, smiling at me very nicely when I went up to get my folder. I kind of felt everyone's eyes burning onto my back for a few seconds. I stood in front of the class. Everybody would look down as I walked back to my desk. I resisted spinning the combination when I sat down, even though everyone else was doing it, because she had specifically told us not to. I was already pretty good at opening locks anyway because I use them on my bike. Henry kept trying to open his lock, but he couldn't do it. He was getting a bit frustrated, kind of like swearing under his breath. That means bad words. Miss Petosa called out the next few names. The last name was Jack Will. After she handed Jack his folder, she said, okay, so Everyone write your combinations down somewhere safe so you don't forget, okay? If you do forget, which happens at least 3.2 times per semester, Mrs. Garcia has a list of all the combination numbers. Go ahead, take your locks out of your folders and spend a couple minutes practicing how to open them. Though I know some of you went ahead and did that anyways. She was looking at Henry when she said that. And in the meanwhile, I'll tell you guys a little something about myself. And then you guys can tell me a little something about yourselves, and we'll get to know each other. Sounds good? Good. She smiled at everyone, though I felt like she was smiling at me the most. It wasn't a shiny smile like Miss Garcia's smile, but a normal smile like she actually meant it. She looked very different from what I thought teachers were going to look like. I guess I thought she'd look like Miss Fowl from Jimmy Neutron, an old lady with a big bun on top of her head. But in fact, she looked exactly like Mon Mothma from Star Wars Episode 6. Haircut kind of like a boy's and a big white shirt kind of like a tunic. She turned around and started writing on the chalkboard. Henry still couldn't get his lock to open. He was getting more and more frustrated every time someone else popped one open. He got really annoyed when I was able to open mine in the first try. Funny thing is, if he hadn't put his backpack up between us, I most definitely would have offered to help him. Next section, around the room. Miss Petosa told us a little bit about who she was. It was boring stuff about where she originally came from and how she always wanted to teach. She left her job on Wall Street about 6 years ago to pursue her dream and teach kids. She ended by asking if anyone had any questions, and Julian raised his hand. Yes, she had to look at the list to remember his name. Julian. Hi, Eddie. That's cool about how you're pursuing your dream, he said. Thank you. You're welcome. He smiled proudly. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Julian? Actually, here's what I want everybody to do. Think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. Actually, wait a minute. How many of you came from the Beecher Lower School? About half of the kids raised their hand. Okay, so a few of you already know each other. But the rest of you, I guess, are new to the school, right? Okay, so everyone think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. And if you know some of the other kids, try to think of something they don't already know about you, okay? Okay, so let's start with Julian. Julian scrunched up his face, started tapping his forehead like he was thinking real hard. Okay, whenever you're ready, Miss Petosa said. Okay, number 1 is that, do me a favor and start with your names, okay? Miss Petosa interrupted. It'll help me remember everyone. Oh, okay. So my name is Julian, and the number 1 thing I'd like everyone to know about me is that I just got Battleground Mystic for my Wii, and it's totally awesome. That's a game. And the number 2 thing is that we got a ping pong table this summer. Very nice. I love ping pong, said Miss Petosa. Does anyone have questions for Julian? Is Battleground Mystic multiplayer or 1 player? Said kid named Miles. Not these kinds of questions, Miss Petosa. Okay, so how about you? She pointed to Charlotte. Oh, sure. Charlotte didn't hesitate for a second. Like she knew exactly what she wanted to say. My name is Charlotte. I have 2 sisters. We just got a puppy named Suki in July. We got her from an animal shelter, and she's so cute. That's great, Charlotte. Thank you. Okay, then, who's next? I'm going to stop there. The next section is called Lamb to the Slaughter. Ooh. So this is going to be about how August talks a little bit about him. Okay. All right. So that is, I think, day 6 of Wonder. I hope you enjoyed it.